Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. On this episode, we are looking at the Copilot and agent opportunity for Microsoft partners and how they are progressing when it comes to building their expertise and experience with customers around AI-based solutions. My guests on this episode are David Buggy of Velosio and Scott May of Stratos Cloud Alliance. They've been working with customers and partners on AI tools and solutions, and they are here to share some of their experiences and their advice for partners. Stratos is the sponsor of this episode, and we begin with some perspective on how my guests see partners maturing their approach to using Copilot and agents. Actual deployments are ramping up, they say, but many partners are still trying to get their footing. There are a range of challenges for partners in this moment, my guests tell me, from trying to become customer zero with the technology to finding a monetization and business model they can believe in. We discuss a range of the options that Stratos and Velosio are seeing today. David and Scott also share some of the go-to-market motions they believe are working, the messages that seem to be resonating with customers, and why partners still need to be looking forward even as they may be rushing to stay current on the AI landscape. I'm glad to have both of my guests here joining me today, Scott May and David Buggy. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining. Can we maybe just start with some introductions? David, I think this is your first time here, so why don't you go first?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Dave Buggy. I'm the vice president here at Velosio, and I run the customer engagement and power platform areas of the business. Good to join you today.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And Scott, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having us again, Jason. Scott May, Director of Channel Development with the Stratos Cloud Alliance Indirect Partner Network team. David has a lot of experience with us because he used to be a partner with the Stratos Cloud Alliance.
That's right.
So he's got experience both on the delivery side as a partner and working with Stratos, as well as working directly with Velosio and our service teams there.
All right. Yeah, David, do you want to maybe give just a little bit more background for our listeners in terms of how you've moved through your career here in the Microsoft space?
Absolutely. So I've been focused on Microsoft Cloud and really the CE and Power Platform areas, longer with CE, of course. Power Platform came later, but I'm over 20 years at this point. Velosio is now my fourth business in the channel. My last business was Strava Technology Group, and we were full project lifecycle services firm focused on CE. And we partnered with Velosio, and we were direct with Microsoft prior to that, but made the decision intentionally to go indirect, chose Velosio as our partner, and ultimately ended up deepening our partnership with them, where we were handling the CE side of projects. And we had a lot of projects that had ERP components to them, and we would bring Velosio in to deliver those areas of the project. And through that, and of course, I've known the leadership here, Robbie and Rob Urbanowitz and so forth for lots of years, and, kept in touch with those guys through the years, and just got to kind of, Robbie and I had the same idea almost at the same time is, would we be better together than we are kind of just as partners? And ultimately that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, probably a great way to set the ground for our conversation today, because as things keep changing, what we really want to dive into today is how things are changing for partners, particularly with regard to the technology that Microsoft is rapidly evolving around Copilot. Yeah, let's start there. I mean, how is Copilot changing the partner landscape?
I'll go first, and then Scott, if you want to jump in. So, if you think about it, every major wave created a new layer of opportunity, essentially, right? You think back to, the different transformations from on-prem to cloud, right? CSP, how that, changed things and impacted partners. And Copilot, though, is a little bit different. It's not just changing what we sell. It's kind of changing how customers use everything they've already bought. For Velosio, this is the most significant shift, certainly I've seen in my career, because it sits right at the intersection of CE, Power Platform, even Microsoft 365, all those investments that customers have already made. And the value conversation has now completely changed as a result. Anything to add to that, Scott?
Yeah. Again, I've been in the industry long enough to see it's just another whole paradigm shift, right? Yeah. You went from basically, single unit stations to networking, from networking to cloud, so if you look at the industry kind of specifics on that, each one of those areas just continues to happen faster, right? They talk about fastest million user adoption and things of that nature. And Copilot, obviously, and AI is, moving the fastest. It's reached that million user adoption and blown that away quicker than any other paradigm shift. So, for partners, the idea that they have to really go through and keep up with that, right? I think it was Lee Iacocca said, lead, follow, or get out of the way, right? You got to be able to keep up with that. And keeping up with all of that change and that kind of technology and new things that are happening is difficult for a large partner like Velosio and Stratos, let alone, the smaller partner organizations. So, that's where we're really trying to help those partners stay abreast, keep their head above water, if you will, by helping them out with services and packages and enablement programs that, they don't have to go out and do it all on their own.
And as you look at partners you're enabling or even end customers that you're working with, I mean, where are they when it comes to adoption of M365 Copilot, or if you want to pick other specific tools and applications, feel free, but like, where are they in their adoption right now?
Yeah. So we've definitely crossed the line from experimentation into real business execution around Copilot, at least for the customers that we're working with. A year ago, we were doing a lot of let's try it on a use case and see, what happens. Today, customers are coming to us with a deployment roadmap and asking, how do we scale this across our sales team, our service team, or operations? And the proof points are there. The question now isn't if, it's, how fast and how deep can we go with this new amazing technology?
And I'd add into that, where Velosio is, our Stratos partners are, is slightly different, right? A lot of our partners are still in the pilot, trying to figure it out. I call it pilot purgatory, right? And then trying to understand how to transition it into reoccurring revenue package solutions that are scalable. And again, we're there to help them scale that quicker by leveraging all of the expertise that David and his team has and is working on. So, we can use that, the experience and knowledge to help them move through the process and work with their clients to do what we're doing without having to have all of that expertise and knowledge, within their own organization.
Yeah. And I think for partners, it depends on where they focus, right? For us, being biz apps, people and focus there for, like I said, over 20 years, that, progression into AI was not a major leap for us, right? Because we're doing automation every day. We're having the conversations with the business leadership of an organization. If you're a partner that dealt mainly with IT and enablement around Microsoft 365, that's a bigger bridge to cross for sure, right? They're getting into different conversations with different levels of people in the organization at their clients, which is a bit more of a stretch, right? For them to make that leap into this AI space from, let's say, more of an IT level focus with their customers.
Yeah. Are you also seeing partners working to be a customer zero for themselves, learning internally before they go out to their client base?
In some cases, probably not as much as I would expect at this point, quite honestly. Again, where I see, it differing is based on what type of partner that we're talking about, right? So kind of communication, collaboration focused partners, they have, Copilot layered in to Microsoft 365. They're certainly doing some adoption there. Are they taking it beyond that, going into agentic AI? Not in all cases, right? So I think that, they kind of have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, are we truly a customer zero here before we, go to market and help organizations get there? We probably need to look in the mirror and see where we're at ourselves.
Yeah, and just to add into that, Jason, most of our partners that we work with is, we're a Microsoft distributor, are business application based, right? So they're, as David's saying, more familiar kind of with the automation, with Power Apps and everything. But I would still say a lot of those haven't gone through and made themselves, customers. We're working with them to do like internal workshops, for them as the partner to help them learn. And we call them AI workshops, where they just at least start to think about that internally for themselves so that they can then go through and use that kind of knowledge and experience to then go out and start talking with their clients. We help them try and become their client zero for themselves, if you will.
All right, so I really want to talk about the business opportunity as well and how partners are making sense of that. And Scott, maybe we can start with you on this one. Where is the real opportunity for partners here? Is it in their services? Is it in the Microsoft licenses? How do you see that right now?
Yeah, I mean, things are really moving, more from just even licensing to kind of, value based, right? What type of value are you providing with whatever you're building, the agent, if you will? So, right now, I think most of it's still probably around professional services, right? That you can get. But I think in the end, we're all driving towards probably pricing that's going to become outcome based upon the value that you're driving. So there's different levels of it that we work with our partners on. We have a program where we kind of follow 5 AI pillars, right? You've got learn, plan, build, deploy, and scale. Some of those are, kind of free just to go through and get clients, just their interest up. And then you start with kind of small workshops or envisioning workshops, as we call them, right? That they're making some money off them, but the idea is really to understand what type of impact and outcome a AI agent program can provide. And then from there, the ROI really starts to go through and go up. But I'd say, David, we're probably further along in trying to understand that, value-based pricing process. But I think that's still something that's evolving within the industry.
I agree. And from, kind of where's the real money, I'd say services without question. There is money in the licensing side. It's more of a commodity. Anybody can provide it, but definitely services without a question. And it's actually a really healthy shift for the industry. The license margin on Copilot is, like I said, it's real, but the transformational revenue around assessments, the deployments of AI adoption programs, custom agent development, which, the latter being a great candidate for outcome-based pricing, as long as you can define it, as long as there's underlying current state data, right? That's critical for outcome-based pricing. But, around custom agents that are being built in Copilot Studio, that's where partners build real durable, growing businesses. And we're seeing customers who bought Copilot licenses and then realized that they need a partner to unlock the value. I literally just got off a call where they deployed 65 Copilot licenses. And I said, well, how did you deploy that? Did you have defined use cases that were curated? Did you have, an enablement team? Did you do training? And they said, no. They said, we really just turned on the licensing and we're monitoring usage and we're seeing pockets of, usage and probably some value coming out of that, but we didn't do it the right way. And that's where partners can really monetize even just the rollout of Copilot itself.
I've also just heard a little bit of feedback from you on this is partners thinking about sort of when they can do their work more quickly to deliver accelerated solutions for customers, what that means for how they basically charge their customers in the sense of a shift away from hourly billing, right?
It really enables fixed fee for sure. And then, probably the next maturity level beyond fixed fee is, going into the value-based pricing. Absolutely.
And where we're seeing that, Jason, is, with migrations, right? Using the AI tools and building tools that our partners can use that help automate that, migration process from legacy Dynamics GP, SL, and Nav into BC and other solutions. And we're seeing it starting to be built into tools like Seer 365 that, we partner with and use. And, again, that's where partners are going to be able to use that up front to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. They're going to go through and be able to keep the same professional services amount that they charge. But on the back end, basically, they're going to be able to hopefully do it for 50% less of the time that it took them before. And so hopefully they can use that resource to do other projects and to do more value added projects to build additional agents and things of that nature.
And you have to be careful there, right? Because if you're in a time and materials project and you're using AI and you're accelerating around that, what does that really mean? I certainly am not a proponent of billing clients for time that you haven't actually spent. And I don't think others should be either, right? So that's something you got to think about is, is that going to enable you and propel you into some fixed fee type of engagements with your clients where you can really then use things like AI to really accelerate and deploy and, give the same value that you would as if maybe you weren't even using AI.
And eventually, once it becomes, a commodity that everybody's using, right? If you're not, you're going to go through and be behind the eight ball.
I think it's already happening. Yeah. Already seeing that be a factor in competitive estimates around projects. Absolutely. Seeing that today.
So that's already, happening. And I'm sure that will come to kind of a commodity based type of, pricing situation soon. And you're going to have to compete on what value that you can go through and provide.
These changes aren't going to happen stepwise. They're all kind of going to happen together, or else you really do risk kind of getting either behind or out over your skis, I guess you would say, and trying to move too quickly without the right adaptation. And that kind of leads me back to something I wanted to ask that I think you sort of touched on, David, about what it looks like to drive Copilot business with existing customers. And, you talked about sort of how there's different ways it can be deployed, right? And different ways that customers can sort of agree to it. Can you talk a little more about how you see partners actually building Copilot usage?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we think about it in stages. The entry point is around things like a readiness assessment, right? That's a fixed scope engagement that gives customers a very clear picture of where they stand on things like data, security, licensing, use case prioritization. From there, it's typically a pilot, 60, 90 days on a defined use case, usually with maybe a sales or service team, because in those areas, ROI is real visible quickly. Then, you layer in managed adoption services, essentially that covers the training, the change management, the measurement. And increasingly, we're adding Copilot Studio custom agents as a fourth tier. And that's where, things get really differentiated. And Velosio is a great partner for those partners, right? That may even need help in going to market with AI and Copilot. All the things that we've developed that we take to market around AI, every single one of them, we offer the ability for our Stratos partners to go and sell and monetize. And it's really a great offering. And partners have asked the question, well, okay, I can go sell your service, but can I, attend and learn? And absolutely you can. So become a Stratos partner and we can help you go to market with AI. Everything that we've built, we have 5 pillars of AI. And we always like to say that we can meet you wherever you are in your AI journey. And we've built the service offerings that we have exactly around that. And partners can monetize those. And through that, they can actually kind of self-enable their own go-to-market, around AI as well.
Just to add on top of that, Jason, the packaged offerings that our partners can sell that we can deliver, and then they can learn while basically, helping them get started. We've also got what we call campaigns in a box, right? To help them market it to their existing clients. And we've got the messaging, we've got the process, we've got, the emails, the social media, we've got the whole campaign that they can start running and then be able to go through if they aren't ready to deliver it, use one of our packages to help them get going. But the real kind of message is you need to get going and you need to be doing this now. And we're here to go through and help you accelerate that and help you grow it quicker.
Yeah, interesting. Can you say more about, either messaging that you're finding that is getting good traction right now, and then as a second part to that question, use cases that are resonating with customers through partner conversations?
Yeah, there is definitely AI fatigue, as you might expect at this point, right? Everybody's hearing AI from every angle. And, a lot of companies are still trying to figure out what it even means to them, right? So we have a wide ranging base of customers, right? From the very large enterprise clients that, are probably mostly already doing things with AI, already doing things with agentic AI. You come down into the mid-market space, there's, varying degrees of adoption there. Some that, are starting to do things with it, some that need help getting there, and some that are just trying to figure out what their AI strategy is going to be. So like I said, we built our stack of solutions that we can meet clients wherever they are in that AI journey. And what's resonating with clients today is not the high level kind of AI messaging because there's so much fatigue out there. What we're seeing work are very use case type of messaging out to the market, right? I do a lot of talking around AI and enabling sales process with AI, and things there are around increasing revenue without increasing headcount. being able to handle more leads through agentic AI, increasing the accuracy of your forecast by having AI constantly, kind of ranking your opportunities, things like that are the type of messaging that I'm seeing work versus the higher level kind of fluff type of messaging around AI.
And David, correct me if I'm wrong, but around those things, we've also built some of our own agents, right? That be, deployed kind of a standard agent, if you will, so that it's not just theoretical. It's, hey, here's an agent that, will help you with, your sales process. And I know that within Microsoft, they're building agents directly into, Business Central, and those are, gaining a lot of traction as well.
Yeah, we have a library of agents that we've actually productized. I believe that's a word, that we can actually, take and sell to a client where that use case is a match, right? But then we have a lot of other agents that we've developed where they're available to us, and I call them accelerators, right? So when we hear a use case that matches to some degree of something we've already built, even though it's not one that's productized, we actually can pull that in and use that as an accelerator as long as that's not, client material, right? And that's the way to look at it, because to build one agent that would fit all of your customers that might have interest in that agent is pretty difficult. So I think using the concept of making them an accelerator and the right positioning around that to the client, that they don't think it's something that they just install, turn on, and life gets immensely better, right? It's something that we can start from and get you X% of the way toward your use case scenario with something we've already built.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what's next in the time we have left, because the story around business applications, Copilot, it continues to evolve. Even just as we're talking here, Microsoft has GA'd CoWork, which also has implications for agents with D365 and the MCP servers for those applications. How should partners sort of think about the future and the ongoing shift here?
So CoWork is my favorite AI tool. Those that are listening that haven't used CoWork, I'd highly recommend that you go check that out. You got to sign up for Microsoft's Frontier program. It is transformative. CoWork is absolutely amazing. So what we're starting to see is the shift around business applications from the traditional use of business applications, right? Think about a sales rep sitting in a seat, looking up information, entering information, creating an opportunity, creating follow-up activities, constantly having to check back and where am I at and what am I doing next? We're actually deploying a project right now where it's an AI first perspective around dynamic sales. So we're building an agent that sits as the interface to the CRM tool, being dynamic sales. And the agent that we've built there is helping a team of about 175 field salespeople prioritize their week. So who should they go visit based on real data? Why? Even incorporating things like, you probably shouldn't go make a visit to this client who's in downtown Los Angeles on Tuesday afternoon between 2 and 5, right? It's just not productive. So it's helping them identify who to go visit, why, what to talk about, when best to go to each one of those target, clients or prospects. Then as they come out of those meetings, having a voice input to the agent to describe what happened during the meeting and what next steps you want the agent to go action in CRM. So in terms of what's next, that's a big area because I also focus a lot on the business applications, the CE area of the platform. That's really what I see, happening next, is having AI as the UI for these business applications.
And I'll jump into that then, kind of what's next, from a partner perspective. Again, obviously everything's moving, at the speed of light, right? Get yourself aligned with partners that are at the cutting edge of this, such as Velosio and Stratos, right? Align yourself, make sure you're doing partner to partner type work, leverage basically the expertise of others in the industry that are farther ahead so that you don't fall farther behind.
It's a low risk way of getting yourself positioned right. And I tell partners all the time, look, if you're not proactively talking about AI with your clients, they're thinking about it and somebody else probably is talking to them about it. Right. So we have a low risk way for partners to go to market with AI solutions where they're leveraging our solutions that we've built that are proven, we know work, right? It's a low risk way for them to get into market with some AI solutions while they then absorb and learn and are able to then kind of craft that into their own go to market around these things as well.
Yeah, Jason, we've got to Stratos Cloud Alliance Partner Advisory Board, and we just had a meeting with them, and we listened to what they were saying about hey, we need help just to get this started. We need help going through and taking it to the next level. And that's, where we work with David and his team and came up basically, with how we could leverage our 5 pillars and the programs that we put together that allow them to take that to market much quicker, lower risk, lower cost, and hopefully go through and keep them abreast at the same pace that the market's going so that they can get up to speed themselves while they're doing this, if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, it's a whole new world of challenges, but going back to where we sort of started talking and what you were saying, Scott, some of the things that are happening now really do remind me of the past, including partnering to find specializations and filling in some of those gaps and learning along the way. Certainly sounds awful familiar.
Yeah, what comes around goes around, right?
Right. Well, I want to thank you both for taking some time to chat. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Jason, I just want to say thanks for Microsoft Dynamics World and all that you guys do to try and keep information out there for partners and to communicate all the changes. You guys do a great job at trying to keep partners up to speed.
Yep, you said it perfectly, Scott.
It was great to have a chance to have you on. And Scott, always great to have you back. Thanks to you both.
Great.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to David and Scott for joining me today. And this message from Stratos Cloud Alliance. If you would like to continue the conversation on how you can use AI in your organization, book time with Scott May. There is a link in the show notes. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.